But I was sort of half crying, you know, please leave. Please, please, just leave. Just turn around and leave.
New at 6 and only on KOMO, we're hearing from a grandmother terrorized by a repeat offender who broke into her home. That man accused of doing it, Alexander J., is now charged with randomly and brutally attacking 2 other women just weeks after getting out of prison.
KOMO has just obtained new video of one of those attacks in tonight's Operation Crime and Justice report. KOMO's Tammy Mutasa live in Seattle with the victims who say Jay needs to be locked up for good so he can't hurt anyone else. Tammy?
Preston, and you know, these are real victims, real people who've been impacted by these vicious crimes. And those victims are terrified that some of these offenders are cycling in and out of the system without getting real help or accountability. So cruel and unimaginably violent. The attack is too disturbing to show it in entirety on TV. But prosecutors say this video demonstrates why Alexander J. needs to stay off the streets.
He is so violent and so destructive and mentally ill.
Investigators say on March 2nd, Jay walked up to a woman he doesn't know at a bus stop. In the spur of a moment, you see him stab her 10 times, even going back to do more damage. 30 minutes before the stabbing, police say he threw this victim down the light rail station stairs, not once, but twice.
This guy had violent tendencies all along.
Prosecutors say just 2 weeks before the savage attacks, Jay had gotten out of jail for smashing into this 89-year-old grandma's house back in April 2020.
It was just a big bam like that, and I thought, what? So I walked out.
Something she's still haunted by, so we're protecting her identity.
I just went like this. I was very shocked to see him there.
She called her neighbors Gary and Melissa. They ran to help.
She was absolutely beside herself with fear. She was screaming and crying, and she said, please don't hurt me. Please leave.
The couple stopped him in the street, holding him at gunpoint until police arrived.
He was totally violent and spitting at people, and it was beyond what anyone would ever wish would happen here.
In the grandma's case, Jay was convicted of felony residential burglary, criminal trespass, and attempted assault. Based on his past convictions, which include theft and domestic violence assault, he had an offender score of 5 on a scale of 0 to 9+. Even with that offender score, a judge sentenced him to 22 months in jail, in line with statewide sentencing guidelines, a frustration for the victims.
This is what we want. This is what we need. Get tougher on crime. And if we can't get legislatures to get tough with the kind of crimes that we're dealing with here, then they need to go away. They need to be replaced.
2 years later, Jay is in jail again, getting a competency evaluation for the 2 most recent attacks he's charged with.
We don't want people to be harmed.
Prosecutors say offenders desperately need more mental health services while they're in jail to help prevent the cycle of violence when they get out. The state's Department of Social and Health Services is grossly underfunded.
Accountability is one part of it, and prosecutors will keep charging these cases. What we also need is when people are in jail or prison, on the convictions that we get, we need them to have better treatment.
The victims want those in charge to remember how the random violence is impacting their lives.
That it could have been so much worse. He has to stay in prison. This has to stop.
So many people who live and work in Seattle say they are deeply troubled by the crime because of the homeless encampment that lives by them. Now, the mayor says he's got the data to prove it, and he's got the cause to take urgent action. And people we talked to today say, go for it.
A man was murdered right outside that door 3 minutes after I left work for that day.
Shootings, stabbings, attempted break-ins for nearly 2 years.
They tried to break in multiple times. I think at least 10 times.
Business owner Shayna Hicks says it all stemmed from a homeless camp at Dexter and Mercer right behind her store.
It caused a huge strain on our business.
Today, the homeless camp is gone, but the concerns are still there all across the city. Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell says new numbers show a drastic increase in shootings and fires linked to camps. Seattle police say that includes more than 42% of the shooting calls so far this year. The mayor plans on using that data to push Seattle City Council to take urgent action and to spur policy changes.
There's a difference between a public safety strategy and a homelessness strategy, and there's overlapping circles in that approach. Right now, I have an encampment that in my district that is growing in the Interbay neighborhood.
Councilmember Andrew Lewis saying the data connecting crime to camps isn't surprising. As for the mayor saying he hopes to change the conversation with city council about homeless camps.
I think that Mayor Harrell is largely in agreement. Mayor Harrell campaigned on creating 2,000 enhanced shelter spaces for people to live in so that they don't only have encampments as a place where they can live. We want to make sure that instead of people getting displaced and camping in other places, they are going to live in a tiny house village or a just care shelter or some kind of arrangement like that. And that is what we need to dedicate a lot of our resource and attention to.
Back to Hicks, her take on what the mayor says and plans to do.
It's going to take a lot of work and some new, fresh ideas, and I hope he's got it.
Yeah, Michelle, in fact, one business owner nearby does say if some sort of permanent police presence is here, it could really help turn things around in an area that's been hit hard by crime. Vacant and boarded up businesses are nothing uncommon on this stretch of 3rd Avenue between Pine and Pike. This area has seen several shootings and other violent crime this year. The Low Income Housing Institute owns this building. To help with safety, they're offering the city the empty storefront space downstairs to use as a community police precinct.
We have a storefront that looks out on 3rd Avenue. So you can look, both ways up and down 3rd Avenue. And it'll be a way of keeping the neighborhood safe as well as our residents.
Efforts to boost safety were made before. A mobile SPD unit still sits on this block. The owner of International Cigar and Tobacco says while it has made the area safer, there's still more work to be done.
80% crime is reduced, although they have moved further down like Benora Hall area.
He feels to do that, adding a community precinct will not only be better for 3rd Avenue, but the surrounding area as well.
To have a precinct there or a small precinct there, keep the police present there, will cut down the crimes.
The second storefront is being offered at 3rd and Yesler in Pioneer Square.
And so we're hoping, hearing about all the news of the, terrible things, including shootings and crime around 3rd and Pine. We think something should happen in that location.
As for what's next, a spokesperson from the mayor's office says, in part, quotes, the mayor's office is in early stages of considering what a neighborhood precinct could look like. We're continuing to explore all options for enhancing public safety downtown, including a more permanent police presence.
A live look now at the Seattle waterfront, where fast ferry service between Seattle and Victoria, British Columbia, has resumed for the first time in more than 2 years. The CEO of FRS Clipper announced the return of that service after Canada recently dropped its testing requirement for those who were fully vaccinated. KOMO's Steve McCarran explains how it's part of a big comeback for the waterfront.
You never know. It is a brief break during an already busy week in Seattle. Patrick Armstrong and his husband.
We've been wanting to come back to Seattle for a long time.
Here visiting the Emerald City together for the first time in about 13 years. They're celebrating their honeymoon that was delayed twice due to fires in California and the pandemic. This is their 3rd day on the waterfront.
I'm not seeing huge crowds, but people seem to be enjoying themselves too.
New figures back that up. The Seattle waterfront saw a huge drop in visitors during the first year of the pandemic with only 1.2 million.
And it tripled last year.
Bob Donegan expects the number to climb a lot higher in 2022.
Waterfront seems like it's back. It is back.
It is a big sigh of relief.
Peter Rose has noticed a definite difference inside the Seattle Shirt Company now that the state has lifted most indoor mask mandates and many out-of-state tourists have been coming into the city for spring break. And starting late next week, the waterfront will welcome the first of nearly 300 cruise sailings, a new record, with 14 ships operating out of Seattle.
It's really a recipe for what we think is going to be an incredibly strong summer, starting with the spring. But I think it's going to feel a lot more like a pre-pandemic spring and summer than certainly the last couple of years.
It is a prediction that's fine with Armstrong.
A return to normal, a cautious return to normal.
It means back to exploring the city he fell in love with as a young boy at the 1962 World's Fair. This time with a husband and a couple friends by his side.
It feels like a very strong sense of community here, and I really like that.
In Seattle, Steve McCarran, KOMO News.
Hi, everyone. I'm Preston Phillips from KOMO News. Thanks for checking out the KOMO YouTube channel. You can see more of our videos right here by clicking on the video links for more news from the Seattle area and Western Washington. Oh, and don't forget to click the subscribe button below so you don't miss our YouTube updates.